Handicapper Steve here, handicapping the racing from Keeneland Racecourse here on Saturday. It is the 13th of April, 2024. It's Lexington Day from Keeneland, and I'm going to look at the Lexington and all the other stakes races on the program. But before I get on to that, remember to please follow me on Twitter at HorseRacingKid5 for more selections for racecourses around the world, and I mean it around the world. Remember to go check out my Aintree Grand National preview today. It looks like it's going to be an excellent race, so I hope you join me for that. But let's look at the stakes action from Keeneland races 7, 9, and 10. Let's get to it right now. The 7th race from Keeneland. It is the Giants Causeway Stakes. It's a grade 3 event going for a $300,000 purse. Race fillies, mares, 3-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here of 13 horses entered. The 13 is an AE, so 12 will go to the turf course. The distance of ground of 1,100 meters or 5.5 furlongs on the Keeneland turf course. Very heavy going at Keeneland with the amount of rain they've had this week, a tremendous amount. My top selection here on the Giants Causeway, I'm going to go with the 8-horse Rose for Deborah. 8-2-6-12 for me in the superfecta. 8-2-6-12 super. Top selection 8-horse Roses for Deborah. 5-year-old mare by Liam's Map. Christophe Clement trains. Iritis Jr. gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint at Santa Anita. 5 furlongs on the 4th of November. And she just had a very wide trip. She finished 9th by 4 3/4 lengths. She didn't have the best trips that day. She tried getting to the front end, which she did early on, but then she just got bottled up between horses late, and she just couldn't keep up. Back here facing the fillies. Lesser quality horses can handle given the ground. I think she's going to be in a better spot to win. 2 back in the Turf Monster at Parks on a very yielding turf course. 5 furlongs on the 23rd of September. If we could ever get close to a heavy going in North America, that would probably have been it that day at Parks. She finished 3rd by 5 lengths that day, and she just kind of stalked that day. She never had the turn of foot late, and she handled the ground okay, but it just wasn't her day to win. The ground's going to be wet, but it's going to be not that wet like it was there. She ran prior to that in the Smart and Fancy at Saratoga, 5.5 on a good melon turf course. It was rated good, but it was the softer side of good, and she loved every bit of it. Winning by 3 3/4 lengths that day from a tracking trip. She was a little bit wide, but she really took off clear. She likes that Saratoga turf course. She won the Caress Stakes before that, going 5.5 on a yielding melon turf course. Won by 2 1/4 lengths that day from the front end. She really put on a show. And then at Belmont in early July on a very lightning fast turf course, 6 furlongs at Opsal 80. She won by 2 3/4 lengths, again a little bit wide, but she flew home clear. Since coming to the turf and to the Clement barn, this horse has really improved a lot. Refreshing her at 4-1. She's a very likely winner. I think the 2-horse here, who is Bling for Victoria Oliver and Johnny Velasquez, could win also. Most recently, they ran the horse in the holiday inaugural Turfway, 6 furlongs on Topeka, 2nd December. She finished 3rd by half a length that day, and she sat back early. She closed up into it well late. Not the world's worst races in defeat. Prior to that, in the Valley View over the mile here in October, she finished 3rd by 1 1/4 lengths that day, and she just kind of stalked all the way around the race course. She couldn't get there late, but she ran her heart out. And then the lounge race here going 5.5. She won by a neck. Cutting back and trip from her previous races was a success. She timed the race perfectly, getting Johnny up. That was a very good race. Last year, they were trying her over the longer trips where she just wasn't excelling. She wants to go a shorter trip of ground. 5.5 is really what she wants to do. If the Breeders' Cup was at Santa Anita this year and they would run it down the hillside turf course, Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint at 6.5, she looks like the kind of horse I would bet everything I own on her, because I think she's been crying out for a 6.5 down the hillside turf course. But she's training well. Back to 5.5 at 6-1, getting Johnny V up. I'll give this horse a shot on the ticket. There's an all Keeneland Turf pick 3 that begins with this race, so use her there. But to recount my selection for the 7th now from Keeneland, it is the Giants Causeway. Going to take the 8-horse Roses for Deborah. Give kudos to the 2-horse Bling. 8-2-6-12 super. 8-2 in the multi-race. Let's get to the 9th race now from Keeneland. It's the co-feature on the program. It is the Jenny Wiley Stakes. It's a grade 1 event going for a $600,000 purse. Race fillies, mares, 4-year-olds and upwards. We have a field here in the Jenny Wiley. 10 quality fillies and mares going the distance of ground of 1,700 meters or a mile 16th on the Keeneland turf course. Gonna take the number 7 horse here, Surge Capacity. 7-9-6-5 for me in the superfecta. 7-9-6-5 super. Top selection 7-horse Surge Capacity. 4-year-old filly by Flensher here. Chad Brown trains. Joel Rosario gets the mount. The horse's most recent outing came 3rd December at Del Mar, a mile in the grade 1 matriarch, and the horse went by ahead that day, and he sat mid-pack most of the race, had a little bit of traffic to maneuver late, but when the holes finally opened, this horse really quickened up and got the job done. A career best 96 buyer, first time in stakes quality, first time older horses in a stakes race. I thought that was a very good race. Coming to a turf course that has him given it, ran on turf courses last summer and at at Saratoga that had gives in it that she really excelled on. I think she could run a race to win. Two back in the Valley View locally on the 27th of October, 1 mile here. She won by 3/4 length, and again from a wide trip, she sat back early. She had a little bit of trouble trip around the far turn, but when she found the clear room late, she really took off clear. That was a very good run for this horse. And then the Lake Placid Saratoga, mile 16th, 19th of August. She finished second by 2 lengths that day. She had a little bit of a wide trip, which cost her. She really closed up well late, but she had to be a little closer that day. And then prior to that, on 21st July at Saratoga, mile under turf course in Lake George, winning by 3/4 length from a tracking trip on a very demanding going. She really took off clear. And then on debut at Monmouth, she went quite nicely also. Refreshing here against these horses. She's in a good spot. I think the 9 horse here, who is died up for Ignacio Correas and Jose Ortiz could get a trip to win. Most recently in the Pegasus World Cup Filly Mare Turf, she won by a neck that day, and she grinded it out to the wire on the front end. It was a very good performance, cutting back and trip over the 1.25 miles prior to that in the Brews Cup Filly Mare Turf. She finished 10th by 4.5 lengths that day. She was just wide, and she really never got going from the back of the pack. And then the Rodeo Drive at Santino over the 1.25 off a little bit of refreshing of about 3.5 months. She won by 1/4 lengths that day, and she really took off clear, destroying those Southern California horses there. Her races last fall weren't bad, or last spring weren't bad at all. Came back to win the Tom Benson Memorial, ran Derby weekend in the Odyssey, where she won by 1/4 lengths, and had a very massive place against market segmentation in the New York at Belmont. Coming here today, she could be forwardly paced at 4-1. Watch out for her in this race. And even talking about the number 6 horse here, Gina Romantica. She won the First Lady here in the fall quite nicely. Came back to run a decent 4th against the boys in the Brews Cup Mile. She's run these good races. She likes this course. I'll give her a shot here at 3-1. This weekend at Keeneland's always been one of my favorite weekends of racing. On Friday, you start the weekend off with the Baker's Mark Mile, and then years ago used to be the Bluegrass on the day after, and then in the last 10 years or so, it's Lexington weekend. Lexington's always one of my favorite races, and the Jenny Wiley is always one of my favorite races also, because a lot of these horses that come out of these races really, these are key races as the season goes on that every year and year past I just keep going back to, because it's some just great formula lines in these races. So keep an eye on these races. I always save the racing form from this weekend also. But to recap my selection now from the 9th from Keeneland, it is a grade 1 Jenny Wiley. Going to take the 7 horse here, Surge Capacity. Kudos to the 9 horse Dida, and the 6 horse here, Gina Romantica. 7.965 Super, 7.96 in the multi race. Let's get to the featured 10th race, or co-featured 10th race from Keeneland now. It is the Lexington Stakes. It's a grade 3 event going for a $400,000 purse race for 3-year-olds here. We have a field of 10 horses going 1,700 meters, or 1 lap around the main track, which is a mile and a 16th in circumference, starting and ending at the 16th pole. My top selection here in the Lexington, I'm going to go with the 8 horse Encino. I'm going to go 8-10-2-5 in the superfecta. 8-10-2-5 super. Top selection 8 horse Encino. This 3-year-old called by Nyquist. Brad Cox trains. Florent Giroux gets him out. The horse's most recent ad came 2nd of March at Turfway, a mile 16th in John Battaglia Memorial, and the horse won by a length that day. He had a very wide trip, but he stalked all the way around the race course. He quickened up nicely, and he got the job done. Back to facing low quality horses, he really put on a show. He is coming to dirt for the first time, which doesn't bother me at all. I think he could really, he could get the trip to win. Being fairly paced, which he is, over this course isn't half bad. 2 back in the main Specialway Turfway, mile 16, 26th of January. He won by half a length that day. He had everything his own way on the front end. He almost went 50 to the half mile that day and went 15 to 3/4. You're going to win off of those fractions, and he did just that. 68 Buyer, that was a very good run there. And then late December at Turfway, a mile in the main Special Weight. He finished 2nd by a neck that day. He had a very horrible beginning from a very horrible post draw, and he just couldn't get there late. He just couldn't get there late. He just missed. If he would have broke, he would have broken the main there. But he's training well locally since the last race. I'm going to give him a shot here at 5-1. I think the 10 horse Lucky Jeremy for Geraldo Corrales could get a bit of an upsetter here. Most recently, the Jeff Ruby Stakes at Turfway of the mile and 8th about 3 weeks ago. He finished 5th by 4.25 lengths that day, and he was dueling on the front end. He just kind of yielded late. It wasn't his day to win. Prior to that in the Sunland Derby, again, he just kind of hit the wall late, but he won the previous race at Sunland quite nicely by 2 lengths from a tracking trip. I hope he doesn't get into a pace duel up front. If he could just slow it down, he can run good races. He's training well Turfway since the last race. At 8-1, give him a shot, and even the 2-horse to Wine Stewart hasn't been seen since he ran a massive place here in the Breeders' Futurity in the fall. Prior to that, against Statebreds here in New York, in the funny side, he won quite nicely and won the Bashford Manor at Ellis quite nicely before that. He's making his first start of the season. I think this is a good spot for him. 5-2, watch out for him. But to recap my selection for the 10th from Keeneland now, it is the Lexington. Gonna take the number 8 horse Encino as the top selection. Give kudos to the 10 horse Lucky Jeremy and the 2 horse to Wine Stewart. 8-10, 2-5 Super, 8-10, 2 in the multi-race. So, good luck to all, and please follow me on Twitter at HorseRacingKid5. Good luck, everyone.